You know, Mr. Penland doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm fortunate enough to work with him about 12 hours a day. Amen. And he's been a blessing to me personally, to my family. I don't look up at him particularly as a boss. I look up at him as a father figure in a lot of ways. He's very nurturing in a lot of ways. He'll put it on you behind if you need it too, you know. But that's what good leadership and good men do and good fathers. And so I thank him for his time today. Hopefully that you will leave here better than what you came, and that what we take away from here, that's something that we can plant elsewhere. Thank you, Mr. Penland.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to first say that I am more than pleased to be here and talk to men and women that love God. God's been in my life all my life. And I'm not your Sunday guy that go to church, but I read my Bible every Sunday. And I have been close to God since as long as I can remember. You know, Mother's Day was just a Sunday or so ago, and I don't know if any of you still have your mother. If you are, you're more than blessed. I lost mine a few years ago. She lived to be 88. A couple of gentlemen right here preached our funeral. Good friends of mine, good pastors that represent Hardin County well. I went to the cemetery Sunday, like probably some of y'all did, if your mom's laying out there, just to check things out. Her and Dad are out there, but they're in separate places. Because when Dad died, we didn't have the money to buy a funeral plot, but the funeral home did it for us. But he only bought one, so when Mama died many years later, we got one over on the other side. I used to get a 9-iron from one to the other, but I can't now. It's getting a little bit too far for me, and they're both still in the same spot. Imagine that. I guess my game's gone. But I drove by her house in Nederland when I left Port Arthur, just to kind of feel close to Mom, where we was raised. And I never went to her house that she wasn't always sitting in front of the TV watching some gospel gentleman on TV. She liked to watch TV, but she didn't get to the church too often. She was getting pretty up in her age. She liked Charles Stanley. I don't know if any of y'all ever listened to Charles Stanley. He was a great, great man, as I'm sure y'all are. She liked it. She just liked somebody on TV talking about God. So I thought about that a lot and missed her a lot. It's kind of a melancholy afternoon. Got back home, had supper with Linda and the kids, read my Bible a little bit, and went to bed. I'm going to pause that part of the story right there. I've been on this journey that I'm on right now for better than 2.5 years. And this journey is about you and 338 million Americans that are suffering today, and the suffering's fixing to get a whole lot worse. Our government does not always tell us the truth, very rarely tell us the truth. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money in Washington, in California, in Florida, in Utah, and we've met with a lot of people that are supposedly in the know. I partnered up with a gentleman by the name of Dave Walker, and he was the former Comptroller General of the United States. He worked with Reagan, he worked with Clinton, and he worked with Bush, a brilliant man that knows the numbers. He wrote back then that we was on an unsustainable path with our finances in this country, and it's gotten a lot worse. He had a close friend by the name of Ross Perot. Ross Perot was a businessman here in Texas, multi-billionaire, very smart man, a godly man, very fine family man. He thought in 1992 that our debt was unsustainable, so he got into the race. He did not want to be president of the United States. He had the capability, and he would have made a fine president. But he thought $4 trillion was too much, that there's no way this country could handle a debt that way because it was going to be passed on forward. So he got in the race and won the first debate, was leading the race, and they had some little scandal or something come up, which back then people thought that can't be right. There's nobody threatening a man just because he's running for president, but I think today we know they'll threaten anybody. It's all they're about is the power in Washington. I don't need their vote. and I don't need their money, but I am going to contest them on this election. And that's why I'm here today. I have paid for the research, and I can tell you that this country is fixing to be in a lot worse shape than any of us imagined today. First thing that's going to happen, we're going $2 trillion a year in the hole for the next 10 years. They can sugarcoat it and say we're not, but we are. That's going to be $56 trillion. You'll be paying north of $2 trillion a year for interest. Who's your number one person or country that you're paying? Japan. Number two is China. They're selling us goods every day because they think we're too lazy and too incompetent here that we can't make things on our own. And they're taking that profit right back and they're loaning it to us. And now here we are paying the interest that we're paying. Social Security started in 1935. Does any of your people that go to your church are on Social Security? Probably most of them. A lot of the people that go to your church is on Social Security today. It means a lot to them. It meant a lot to me in 1957 when my dad had a massive stroke. He was an alcoholic. 2 weeks after he had the stroke, we didn't have nothing in the house to eat. There was a couple of bottles in the cupboard. He wasn't able to drink it anymore. If it wasn't for that $200 a month Social Security we got, would have starved to death. And it's even that much more important to 68 million Americans today that are on Social Security. There's 10,000 people a day retiring and getting on Social Security. Social Security runs out in 9 years. There'll be 75 million Americans dependent on Social Security when it runs out. And people say, well, the government's not going to default on their debt. They'll pay that anyway. But if you read the Constitution, the 14th Amendment tells you, Article 4, that the only thing the government has to pay is the debt and the interest on the debt. And they let every other program go. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Any other program they can let go. They're not obligated to pay it by the Constitution. They're obligated to pay the debt and the interest on the debt. That means they'll send China and Japan a check and cut your Social Security and the people that come to your church back. They got no choice. They're bound by the Constitution to do that. Well, it's not something they vote on. If it's something they could vote on, they'd change it. But they can't. So there's where we are. We're up against it right now. It's looming out there real big. And you just think about it, by then it'll be 70, 75 million people on Social Security, and they take a 30% cut. What's that going to do to those families? They won't go out to eat. They won't go to a movie. And they won't put as much in the offering plate because they won't have it. Medicare is going to take a 20% cut. That means a lot of people won't go get the health care that they need. Now, all of this can be fixed if they'll quit spending the money wastefully. The last normal year this country had was 2019, right before COVID. We spent $4.4 trillion. There's the whole nation, that's what we spent. We'll spend 6.8 this year. Has nothing to do with COVID. That's 50% more in just a few years. It took this country 224 years to get to 5.7 trillion in debt. Joe Biden made it to 5.7 trillion in 3 years. 1.2 of that was contributed to COVID, but he'll spend 1.7 over in this quarter, so he'll eclipse that. We're spending money at a record pace today. It's not going in your pocket. It's not going in the elderly people's pocket, and we're suffering all over the country. And they call it the Green Deal and all these other projects to make you feel good. But let me tell you, when we're working in this country, because they're taking taxpayers' money to build something or fund something, that's your money. What we need is Exxon and big companies to fund jobs and create jobs like they used to, instead of the government trying to create all the work. Now, I've met with Newt Gingrich several times. I've been all over Washington, all over New Hampshire, met with Joe Manchin, met with a lot of smart people. And every one of them, if they're not standing in front of a mic, will tell you the story I'm telling you. When they get in front of people, they seem to change their tune just a little bit. So I got with Newt Gingrich, if you remember in 1994, in the midterm after Clinton got elected, they came up with a contract with the American people that if they got elected, they would put certain things through Congress. They'd get them voted on. They couldn't guarantee the outcome, but they'd get them voted on. And what was the outcome for that? We balanced the budget 4 times, first time in history, paid it down twice. The Fed chairman, Alan Greenspan, thought was going to pay our debt off. It didn't happen. Dave Walker, the man I talked about earlier, said it's not going to, he testified to Congress, said it's not going to happen. We've got too many programs out here growing too fast, and we don't have the income coming in to support it. We need more people working in this country and quit buying so much from foreign countries. We need to put our money where our mouth is. Quit talking about it and let's get it done. But it fell on deaf ears, and that's been happening now for 40 years, and that man's still pushing the envelope, and he's pushing it with me today. So he toured with Ross Perot. He's got one of Ross Perot's posters, if you remember, the charts Ross Perot had on TV when he ran. Those charts are just about right on the number where we were and where we are now. But the government keeps denying it. They keep kicking the can down the road. The first people that's going to suffer is your elderly people in this country when they take a 30% cut in just a few years. Now, when I went out to the cemetery this past week, looked at all the little red flags out there. My dad was in World War II, and a lot of y'all probably went out to the cemetery too. All those people didn't die in the war. All of them didn't lose a hand or a foot in the war. They were all willing to. Every one of those people that flag is on their headstone was willing to lose their life so we could be here today. So we could worship the way we wanted to worship. We could pick and choose who we wanted to be with, and we wasn't just everything demanded from Washington how it is. We all are law-abiding citizens, and we want that. We know we need law and order. There's nothing wrong with that. We need a lot more of it if it's handled in the right way. Nobody needs to get out of line when you're in a policeman or even lawyers or whoever. We need to take care of the American people the right way. We need to roll back a couple of chapters in our history book, because it wasn't long ago and you could pray in school. My goodness, we took prayer out of school. This is the United States of America. One of these days they're going to say, Roderick, you can't open with a prayer? Where are they going to lead us? They're going to lead us off that cliff. Okay. So years ago when Dad had that stroke, about 30 days later, 45 days later, there's a knock on our door. He was crippled. He was in the bed. My younger brother just had open heart surgery. He was in another bed. Mama was 40 years old and had 3 other little kids. She's taking in laundry and ironings because we didn't have a car, and she had to work at home to take care of the sick. I opened the door, and there was a man there, an elderly gentleman, probably younger than I am today. And he says, your mother here? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I'm from First Baptist Frisco. Can I see her? And I said, yeah. And he had some bags of groceries in his hand. Mama came to the door, and he introduced himself. He said, Miss Penland, I know you're going through hard times. This is some food so y'all can have a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. And Mama thanked him, and he was so happy. Tears running down his cheek, and he was just happy. He said, you blessed my day. And he walked off, and I told Mama, what's he talking about? We don't know this guy. He's so happy he's giving us stuff. Why is that? She said, that's what God wants him to do. She made several meals out of that. Well, about a month later, come up Christmas time, knock on the door. I answered the door again. She said, son, do you remember me? And I said, yes, sir, I do. She said, can I see your mom? I said, yeah. He had a woman with him. The woman had an armful of presents. This man had a bunch of groceries in his hand. It's Miss Penland. He said, I'm back. I'm First Baptist Frisco. He said, yes, sir, I remember. He said, we got some presents for your children, and we got some food for you. He said, you're the family that I'm supposed to take care of. And Mama was just so happy, and he was happy, and his wife was happy, and they just, it was a wonderful moment. Now, I'm coming on 8 years old, and I'm still not understanding what's going on. We don't know these people. They're not kin to us. And we shut the door, and I told Mama, I said, I don't know. She said, well, Joe, I told you, that's what God wants people to do is help people, help the down and out. I said, well, you're going to have to do better. I don't understand it. She said, hand me my Bible. I did. She opened it up. She said, and the king said, when you've done for the least of mine, you've done unto me. And she shut the Bible, and she said it down. I said, do you understand? I said, no, man. She explained it. And I said, well, when I get to where I can, not if I can, but when I get to where I can, I'll help somebody every day. And that's the business card you have in that packet has that verse on the back. I haven't read the Bible as much as you gentlemen, I'm sure. I love the book, and I love what it's about, and I understand it. And we all know as Christians where we're going when we leave this life. But I can tell you, there's a lot of bad in front of us. And it's the wrong thing to do to such a great nation. Think about this. This is the United States of America. We salute the flag. We bless our food. We pledge to the flag. Those are the things that I was taught when I was going to school 60 years ago. That's what y'all were taught. That's what y'all were taught. So I go to sleep Sunday night, missing Mama. And I've been dealing with these politicians, and I've been traveling the country over, and a door opened and another one to close, and a door opened, another one closed, and a door opened, and you get there and it's closed before you get there. And all they want is money because they want to get elected. And they can't understand a man spending his own money just to try to help people and don't want no vote. So we came up with this contract, me and Mr. Walker, and that's what I was out there trying to do, is get this contract like Newt Gingrich did. So Sunday night, well, Monday morning about 2 o'clock, I had a dream about Mama. Well, you got to run your mind all day. I'm sure some of y'all think about something during the day, and that triggers your brain at night, and you have a dream. I was at Mama's house, and she's watching TV. And I couldn't make out the face of the preacher because she listened to so many. But when I got up, I knew what that meant. Get the godly men and women behind you and let them talk to the people for you, because it's for them, it ain't for me. I don't worry about me and my family because we've been blessed. We've been blessed more than I can even imagine. But I worry about all the people that go to your churches and all the people that live in your neighborhood. They need some help, and they need somebody to stand up for them. If I can get enough commitment on this contract that you have a copy of, if we can get enough names down, I'll have the ability to sit down with the 3 candidates and say we got 3 or 4 or 5 million people that say if you'll get this pushed through Congress, can't guarantee that it's going to pass, but you need to get like we did in the 90s. Let's put America first, because if Trump gets elected, he ain't going to be there for 4 years. He don't have to worry about being nice to nobody. He isn't anyway. But that's okay. If Biden gets in there, he ain't going to be there but 4 years. And I don't know if the other man will even make the ballot. But we need to be able as a group, because when I tour around the country, people say, Joe, my vote doesn't count. Well, it's hard to imagine one vote counting when there's so many million people in this country. But if you can get 4 or 5 million votes, that counts a lot. If you offer Donald Trump $5 million today, or Biden $5 million today, or 5 million votes, they'll take the votes, because it's going to be that close. This will be the first time in American history that the Christians can decide who takes the White House over as their residence. I want y'all, if you would, please read this and pray about it. Have your people in your church. This is not a political deal. This is a godly deal. This has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This is about people. You know, if God forbid one of us get in a bad accident and the ambulance pulls up, none of us care if it's a Democrat or Republican. Get my family to the hospital. And you get there and they get the call, and somebody's in the trauma center. And you go in, it's a woman operating. That's okay. It's a man operating. That's okay. It's a black gentleman. It's a white man. I don't care, as long as it's the best. I want the best for my family. And all of us do. And God wants us to do for the people that can't do for themselves. For the least of His is what you need to pick this up and do it for. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not ordering you what to do. I'm pleading that you help me, help yourself, and help the generations beyond us. How horrible is it going to be for us to be the first generation to leave this country worse off than we found it? You know, when we came out of World War II, we were the superpower. Everybody in the world respected us. Some of them feared us, and rightfully so. They picked on us and we had to retaliate, but we done what we had to do for us to have this country to be in. There's no two ways about what you can do if you get the numbers and the faith behind you. And you know, all of us pray a lot because you're godly people, and that's what we have. And that's why I put in your letter. I'm asking for your prayers and your commitment to help yourself, help your community, and help this country. Because we can turn it around right now. The Congressional Budget Office says that we'll be that other $20 trillion in the hole in 10 years. I don't know if there's a way out of that. I don't know. But whenever our interest rate gets so high and countries won't loan us any more money, or people won't buy our bonds because they think we're a bad risk, then they're going to start cutting the programs out. They've got no choice. When you take in $4.5 trillion and you spend 6.8, you can't do that too much longer. I mean, we are suffering in debt right now. I mean, look, credit card debt went over $1 trillion for the first time in history in the United States. People are suffering today. They say inflation's back down. It is down from 9 to 3.5, but you can't tell it at the grocery store. You can't tell it at the gas pump. You can't tell it on your utility bills. The cost of living is continuing to go up. There's 25 million acres today in the United States, 25 million acres, farmland, that the government has leased, rented, and won't let you plant on. We're buying crops and food from foreign countries. Now, if there was ever a blueprint or plan to destroy the greatest country in the world, they must be reading it. Because I have paid for a lot of research, and I've done more reading in the last 2 years than I've done in the 72 prior to that. I'm 74 now. I may not win this journey, but I promise you, I'll be there. And November the 6th, I'll make that journey to the cemetery. That's the day my dad died. That'd be 60 years. And I'll explain to him that day I did all I could do. But I won't fall short on the effort. And I pray to God that y'all don't either. Help me get the word out. Get on Facebook. All you have to do is you can click on our contract and read it. And I don't think there's anything in here anybody in this room would disagree with. I want to see some term limits. Those people don't need to stay 50 years. That's ridiculous. They go in there and they stay 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That's ridiculous. First thing we need to do is rein in our spending. We need to get the school system back like it needs to be. We need to get it safe and secure, and we need to teach kids in high school again about civics and economics, what a good interest rate is, and what a house note, and how you should do things. They come out there totally green, and that's why the credit card people don't want us to do that. They're happy that young people think 1.5% a month is better than 6% a year. 18% or 6%. You tell me which one you want to pay. But they're conning us. And as long as we let them do it, they're going to get worse and worse and worse. You know, I never thought that I'd ever see this country get to where we had to borrow money from foreign countries. You know, remember 1941, reading it in the history book, December the 7th, a sleepy Sunday morning. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Next day, we was at war. 1945, we dropped an atomic bomb, and there was no Japan left. Killed tens of thousands of people. It stopped the war. It was nothing but rubble. All of Europe was rubble. All of Europe was. The war had been fought there. Here we are. We come back. We win the war. We come back here. The only destruction we had in this country, besides losing precious lives to defend this country, was Pearl Harbor. All our shipyards were intact. All our railroads were intact. All our factories intact. Everything was still intact. Washington looked like it was. We were the superpower, number one in economic, military, our culture, diplomatic. We led in everything you could lead the world in. Everybody wanted to be paid by U.S. dollar. They all wanted to come here to go to work and have the chance that we have as just being Americans. And we've come now to where we have to borrow money from Japan. They're our number one lender. They dug out from under the rubble, built their country back. They're our number one lender to the strongest, most powerful, most respected country in the world, the United States of America. And we're over here borrowing money from a country that bombed us on a Sunday morning. You tell me what's wrong with that. We're men and women in the United States of America. We do not have to take that. We don't have to take what they're shoveling. I wish they had to eat more what they're shoveling in Congress. I wish they didn't get a paycheck unless they balanced the budget. We want them to have a budget. We want them to have it on time. We want them to adhere to the budget. We got some reforms in here. We can have a constitutional amendment to make that happen. But we need America to make it happen. Now, that bunch sitting in Washington don't like me a whole lot, and that's okay. That's fine. There's no problem with that. I'm speaking for America. I'm like Ross Perot. I don't want to be president of the United States. I would love to know, November the 6th, that we helped influence the outcome of the 2024 election in a positive way for 338 million Americans and live on Bush Road and Kuntz. I don't want to live in Washington. I'm not cut from that cloth. I can only tell you what's in my heart and what I feel and what I think is true. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell it just like it is. We can turn the tide, and we can start it in Beaumont, Texas, and Southeast Texas. We have enough pastors. We have enough people going to our churches that believe in God and believe like we do. They can get on your Facebook and pump it out to 10. They can pump it out to 10. They can pump it out to 20. And we'll have 3 or 4 million votes, and them candidates will talk to us. Guarantee you they'll talk to you because they need your help. They don't need your money. They got plenty of money. They don't need our money to get elected, but they need our vote. We don't want 2024 to pass us. This is the election we need to make the stand. And I guarantee you, it won't be long and you'll see this old man on TV because we're raising too much cane. You know, Hannity's called us and some of the other ones have called us. It's not time yet. Trump's people have reached out to us. It's not time yet. I don't want to go meet with Trump and then somebody say I'm just out on the stump for him. But once we select the man that's going to sign this in public and give America his word that he's going to do that, then I'll go to the swing states and so forth, and I'll politic all I can for him. Because I'm doing it for America. I'm not doing it for him. Can you imagine today that little child that was in this gentleman's arms a while ago? If you look at our national debt, you know what that child owes? $110,000. $110,000. You know what every taxpayer owes? $275,000. That's what your debt is today. Your interest is $2.5 billion a day. And what do you get for that? Nothing. We're going to spend $1 trillion in interest in 24. How many people do you think we could have helped? How many people do you think y'all could have helped in your church with that kind of money? We could have 2 policemen, 2 highway patrol, or 2 sheriff's deputies in every car at night. You know, think about pulling up at 2 o'clock in the morning on one of our roads out in Hardin County because the guy's weaving. You got to walk up to him at 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself. But while we're all sleeping in bed. You think about the people in the war, like I said. But think about your first responders. They're in a war out there every day, 365 days a year, and they're going to do it for 35 or 40 years, not 2 or 4 or 6 years. I about said all the old man has to say, but I hope some of this will resonate with you, and you'll pray. That's what I asked in the letter that I gave every one of y'all first, is I need your prayers. I want you to pray for your congregation. I know you have a lot of influence. You are the people in the community that has influence. There's where the influence is. It's in the house of God. Again, don't say, well, Joe, you know, we don't want to talk about that in church. Where do you want to talk about it? After they said we can't go to church anymore? When are we going to talk about it? I say we talk about it now. That's what I say we do. I say we act like Americans. men and women, because we got children that we have to take care of. We got elderly people that we have to take care of. We're hung in the middle, and that's where it is. I'll close with one last story. I went to Dallas to visit with the Young Republicans Convention. I went on right after our governor. 1,500 people there, and they were all 20 to 45. When I got through talking, I talked about Social Security and running out and so forth, and there was a gathering out in front of the stage, and I walked down there, and they wanted to talk, and this one young man said, Mr. Penn, let me ask you something about Social Security. I said, okay. He said, why are you so high on Social Security? I said, well, evidently you don't think we need Social Security. He said, I can take that 6.2% they're holding out my check, and I can invest that, and I make a lot more money by the time I'm retired. I said, okay. How old are you? He said, 25. I said, are you married? He said, fixing to be married in about 3 months. I said, y'all want any kids? He said, we want 2. I said, let's fast forward about 2.5 years. You just brought your wife and twins home, a boy and a girl. He high-fived me. Scott was there. He said, man, that's exactly what we want. I said, 6 months later, you have a stroke. Have you put up enough money to get those children fed and your wife and take care of them until they get out of school? He said, well, no, I ain't had enough time. I said, okay. I said, then another 4 or 5 months ago, complications set in and you die. Is there enough money set aside for those children? He said, no. I said, that's what Social Security would have done. When you got disabled, a check would have came to your house for your wife and your children and you. When you passed away, it would change over to the dependents. He said, how you know that? I said, because it happened to me. We started getting a check when I was 7. When I was 14, my father passed away, and they changed it, and then it was the dependents, but I got it till I was out of school. This young lady said, well, you also said while you was on stage, you talked about the economy of scale. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, what's that mean? I said, where are you from, ma'am? She said, California. I said, how'd you get here? She said, I flew. I said, how much was your ticket? She said, $700. I said, how full was the plane? She said, they couldn't pack one more person on. They made us wait till they filled that plane up. I said, okay. Well, that's what the airlines are doing now. What are we going to do? They ain't know whether how you going to get there from California to here. I said, okay. I said, how much was that ticket? She said, $700. I said, okay. I said, how many people on that plane do you think was my age or older? She said, over half. I said, if we take that 30% cut, we're not vacationing much no more. We're not going to be getting on those planes as often as we do. Your ticket's going to go to $1,200, $1,400, and y'all going to fly half the people instead of what you guys say. Oh, I didn't understand that. I said, we spend our money. We're old. We know the time's running out, so we spend our money. $1.4 trillion went out in checks to Social Security last year. $1.7 trillion went out from Medicare and Medicaid. And we're going to pay out $900 billion in interest. Now add those 4 up, it adds up to what we make. Now we ain't spent nothing on defense yet, or running the government, or the highways, or anything else. And they tell me where we're going to get that money. Oh, that's right. We got a line of credit with China. Think about it, people. Just if you will, read this. And if you would, go to our website and plug up. You'll see Dave Walker, and you'll see some of these people I'm talking about. You know, I'm going to do the best I can. I won't come up short on the effort. If we come up short on the vote or a commitment, it's in God's hands, it's not mine. But he needs a little help to get his flock back under, because I know when the time comes, I know what he's going to tell me. I'm not trying to buy my way to heaven. I'm not trying to do that. I want to be on the right side. I don't want to be on the left side. I am one of his sheep. I'm not a goat. I know where I'm going, and y'all are going to be there too. God bless you. And thank you for coming.